After having heard the near universal praise for literally every aspect of the experience, I was intrigued and installed Expedition 33. I played it for about 30 minutes and stopped playing because I had other things to do. Then the Game Awards happened, and it won quite literally every award it was nominated for, which very contentiously included the indie categories, because apparently a game with a $10 million budget made by former Ubisoft devs with performances from major actors like Andy Serkis and Charlie Cox counts as an indie game alongside Balatro, a game made by one guy. Anyway, the point is, I was astonished by the sheer amount of Game Award nominations it received, then even more astonished by the record-breaking 9 out of 13 wins it got. I was, as a result, dragged back into playing because I had to see for myself if this level of praise was earned. Because I love RPGs, and this is quite literally the most praised turn-based JRPG in recent history. What I was met with, as I put around 50 hours into E33, was the most truly uninspired and painfully derivative JRPG I've played in a very long time. I am a fan of RPGs. That's a statement I want to make abundantly clear before I rip this game apart. Earthbound is one of my favorite games ever, easily in my top 10. And I have loved the time I've put into Chrono Trigger, Mother 3, Paper Mario, The Thousand-Year Door, Final Fantasy VII's, all iterations of it. Hell, I even love the incomprehensible mess that is Final Fantasy 15. And I love the weird Link to the Past knockoff and delisted gem that is Adventure Time, The Secret of the Nameless Kingdom. And how could I forget the real indie darling that is WrestleQuest? I bring up all these games to say that I love JRPGs a lot, and E33 just didn't do it for me at all. And that's not for lack of trying. I did almost everything there was to do in the game, with the exceptions of killing Simon and finishing the Endless Tower. So before you come at me for missing things, I did damn near everything, and I still didn't like the game. But before we can get into that, I need to set your expectations for what we're going to talk about. And so we're going to quickly recap the events of the story, talk about the gameplay, the world, the characters, all the standard things, and ultimately I want to figure out why this game was as successful as it is. And I think I have an interesting answer with some compelling, albeit unproven, reasons behind it. Without any further ado, let's Mario 64 ourselves into the most aggressively French JRPG you'll ever see. Shall we? In describing the narrative of Expedition 33 to a friend of mine, I described it as, quote, an amateur D&D campaign being given the budget of Critical Role or Dimension 20, where it has some admittedly really cool concepts that are utilized to regurgitate a narrative you've seen 1,000 times before, or at least until the end of Act 2 twist happened and the already flimsy narrative nosedived into a truly baffling yet unabashedly original third act that was so fucking stupid that I couldn't help but become slightly interested in it. Not because it was good, but because it was so monumentally wacky, yet I will give it this, it is way more original and inspired than the first two acts are. Now, I would like to say that I didn't take any notes while playing, so I am entirely recapping this based on what I remember about the game, so there may be some discrepancies here and there for you die-hard expeditioners out there to complain about. None of you, since you've all stopped watching the video by now, disliked it and left death threats in the comments. If you're still here, maybe consider liking the video and leaving a comment where you engage in thoughtful and respectful conversations about the game or the thoughts expressed in this video. I'd love to hear from people. Anyway, back to the game itself. So, what are those first two acts all about then? What could possibly have happened at the end of Act 2 to suddenly, albeit only slightly, pique my interest in the game? Well, we'll start with the start. There is an evil entity named the Paintress who has fractured the world and, in the middle of it, left a giant monolith with a 100-year countdown that ticks away year by year until year 0, where all of humanity will die. Every year, the surviving city of Lumiere sends an expedition of their best and brightest to stop the Paintress in order to end the curse. The curse, or gumaging, is when the countdown reaches half of the year a person was born in, so for many in the party, they'll gumage at age 32, which means they were born in 64. Anyway, we follow the titular Expedition 33, which is actually the 67th expedition. Don't fucking say it, because the count is fucked since the 100th expedition had to be Expedition 0 and not 100, so it goes from 0 to 99. It's really stupid. As they embark on their fruitless adventure to try and stop the Paintress. That is the main concept of the game, which is admittedly a pretty cool one that establishes the core themes of the game being death, grief, and loss. Where the game starts to fall off is the moment the plot actually kicks in, which is after a very lengthy prologue tutorial that just kept fucking dragging on and on. I mean, I got it. Our main characters are Gustav, a divorced man whose ex-wife Sophie is about to gumage, and his adopted daughter Maëlle, a 16-year-old, and we're following Gustav for a really long time as he says goodbye to Sophie, who clearly still loved him, and blah blah blah. 15-minute cutscene of her dying to her gumage before the journey starts. After the mass death, those who are onto the expedition celebrate being alive, then ship off to the continent in order to save the world. They get absolutely massacred by one old man. We get the seemingly mandatory war movie main character gets temporarily deafened by an explosion as they watch disoriented as the chaos unfolds scene, before we cut to Gustav alone in front of a waterfall. Meander through this world, stumble across a cave of corpses, immediately go to kill yourself before getting stopped by Loon, one of the fellow expeditioners and survivors. Team up, fight through to the continent, notice a flare go off in some distant area of the continent, and head there together to see if there happens to be any other survivors. Of course, there is another, since Maëlle survived the onslaught and she encountered a Gestrel. Gestrels are these fake-ass folklore creatures that are designed like paintbrushes and those wooden figure models, but they constantly fight all the time, and also they serve as this game's merchant. Anyway, bring Maëlle into the party, navigate to the Gestrel village to find the final survivor, Sael. I'm gonna butcher names, and I quite frankly don't give enough of a shit about French to respect the names. Fuck your fake ass language. Anyway, editor cut all of that. Anyway, bring Maëlle into the party, navigate to the Gestrel village to find the final survivor, Sael, and bring everyone together to go find another fake-ass folklore creature named Esque. Whatever, man. It's been too long since I've played this game, and I can't be bothered to go back, since he's the only one we're gonna be able to traverse the lakes of the continent with. Miscellaneous side content happens until you approach the cliffs that you need to cross in order to cross the water, and it goes well up until that old man shows up and Gustav has his last stand in Act 1. Anyway, he fucking dies, and the gang, with the help of this other dude who seems to be able to withstand Renoir's attacks, also Renoir is the old man. I didn't say that earlier. They escape. At camp, we're introduced to this mysterious stranger. His name is Verso, and the super powerful old man is named Renoir. Anyway, the fight to kill the Paintress continues without much intrigue. We meet our final party member, Minoko. I do some optional side content, like maxing out my relationship with every party member, finding the lost Gestrels, doing a lot of boss fights, collecting optional Pictos, and doing every fucking Gestrel game. Yeah, that's right, I beat the bullshit hard mode volleyball minigame. I put in the fucking effort. I put in more effort than most people who played this game. Anyway, we do the things, fight some Goliaths, keep having some delusions involving some mute girl named Alicia, which was happening earlier, but I don't care, and keep carrying on until eventually you're able to pierce the barrier and reach the monolith to fight the Paintress and save the world. Attempt to fight the figure as it are at the bottom of the monolith, but realize it's no use! Wow, a fucking Sonic 06 reference in this economy? Damn. And that you're gonna have to climb to the top of the monolith to end this charade once and for all. And after climbing the Tower of Babel, which had a song in the fog area that reminds me of the song that plays at the end of Red Dead Redemption 2 during the High Honor ending, if you know, you know, I would play it, but I gotta keep moving. Then you finally reach the top of the mountain, and I ain't planning on coming back down until the job is done, brother. And the paintress was honestly kind of a pushover, and fucking whatever, man. I did my job. Time to go home to Lumiere and be the hero that ended the Goumages and saved the world. Return home, watch his families are reunited, and the children are sad that Gustav died for their sins, and Verso reads a letter from Alicia as the world turns gray and everyone Goumages, since apparently we've done doomed the world. But then we get an epilogue? God, I hate to bitch about semantics, but this is an interlude, not an epilogue. Epilogue implies that the story is done, and we've still got a full act to go. Anyway, we see that Mael is actually Alicia, who comes from a family of painters, and this whole game took place in a painting that was actually the final painting of Verso, who died in the real world, saving Mael/Alicia from the fire that has left her permanently scarred and without a voice. The paintress was actually Aline, our mother, and Renoir is our dad. Also, we have a wacky, bitchy older sister named Clair, who just kind of disappears after this interlude and is barely mentioned outside of one secret boss fight, since she's off fighting some unseen mythical group called, I'm not fucking with you, the Writers. This twist is the most stupid fucking thing I've ever seen. You mean to tell me that none of this was real? That all the world is but a painting and we are merely pigment in the layers of paint upon a magic canvas? And worse than that, there's a rival faction to the painters called the Writers, and this is a throwaway line? You mean to tell me the one interesting and unique concept this game has is not used at all? This isn't world building. This is a forgotten sentence that somehow made it to the final cut of the game and no one questioned it. I mean, if the Writers played literally any role in the game other than being an excuse for Clair to not be in the picture, I would be so much happier. But as it is, this is too important a point to be forgotten. But it is. Anyway, after this reveal, Mael re-enters the painting, now knowing what she actually is, what powers she has as a painter, and we go back into the painting to fight Papa Renoir and prevent him from completely destroying the canvas. And I'll be 100%, 1000% real with you, chat. I don't fucking care about Act 3 in the slightest at this point. The narrative has gone from being about saving humanity from certain doom while coping with the inevitability of death and grief and all of that, to a family drama about grieving a dead son and a disabled daughter where the whole world I am supposed to be invested in meant fucking nothing. And the final fight against Renoir? Nothing. Not even a challenge. Now, this may be because I was level 86 with an insane build, but that's not the point. After defeating dear old dad, we get... Are you fucking kidding me? We get a Far Cry 3 Ubisoft good ending or bad ending final choice that completely ignores the rest of the narrative? Are you fucking kidding me? This won Game of the Year over literally anything else? Good fucking God, man. Anyway, the ending is dependent on who you go into the real final battle with, Mael or Verso. Mael, who wants to keep her dead brother's soul alive, or Verso, who wants to become nothingness. Since I wanted the game to end, I picked Mael since she could literally two-turn Verso, and did, which led to the pretentious European art cinema-inspired ambiguous ending where she's created her dream world against Verso's wishes, and we watch him put on a show at the Opera House as her face cracks into paint and the game ends right there, and God, I feel nothing. I get all of what this game is trying to say about the nature of grief and art and the human soul, but this is literally nothing new or groundbreaking. This is just taking concepts from Mother 3, Shadow of the Colossus, and Silent Hill 2, adding elements of the French New Wave movement in film history, and shitting out something that is allegedly on the same tier as Final Fantasy VII? What a sick joke. If you think I'm being reductive in this recap, I promise you that I am not. This is every major plot beat in the game except for one. If you go and banish Mael as Verso in the final battle, she gets sent back to reality and the family reconciles, which is the good ending, and to be honest, the lamest ending. The bad ending at least has this interesting option where Mael gets to take control over her life and go out on her own terms, happy and able to speak, surrounded by her friends and family in this fake painted world that offers her more comfort than reality ever could, because her real family, they suck. And honestly, the actual good ending really is letting Mael take control over her life and die in the painting. It is the equivalent of Joel killing all of the scientists at the end of The Last of Us, a selfish act that is ultimately the point of the game, with that one being about fatherhood and this one being about dying happy, since Mael's condition in the real world is only getting worse. But am I satisfied with this narrative? I mean, if I consider both endings, where it's about grieving as a family or going out on your own terms, was there a satisfying ending to this game? No, full stop. This narrative was stupid, truly fucking stupid in every sense of the word. There was nothing unique or special about it. Like, if I wanted a JRPG about family and grief, I'd play Mother 3, a game that is 19 years older than E33, and told in a far more compelling and beautiful way, in a rich and unique world full of joy and sadness, critiquing the very nature of humanity and greed. And God, I should talk about that game someday. The point is, E33 isn't special. Hell, it isn't even remotely close to good. Like, every event in the story gets shafted by the ending choices, since they didn't feel informed by the events of the gameplay and the narrative that preceded it. This game, from a purely narrative perspective, is 1000% crafted for people who haven't played a real JRPG before, or really any majorly significant story game in the pantheon of gaming's all-time greats. The moral of the story is just go play Mother 3 and Silent Hill 2 back to back. That'll get you a much richer and deeper exploration of every theme present in this game's narrative, presented in exponentially more interesting packages. In spite of how much I fucking hated the nonsensical story of the game, my biggest complaint is actually not the story, but rather the gameplay. Turn-based RPGs are one of the more fun and strategy-based types of gameplay, because you have to consider whether it is worth attacking with a character in a turn, or going to dodge, block, parry, use magic, whatever it may be. It is a gameplay system that requires you to think and predict what an enemy is going to do, at least at the highest level of the classic system, and this game is not that classic system. This game instead uses the Paper Mario system, which is essentially the same combat-wise, but it introduces two new mechanics to the formula: action blocking and action parrying. Instead of these being a full turn commitment, they are used when an enemy attacks and you react by hitting a button to block before the attack hits you to nullify, or at the very least reduce, incoming damage. And it's consistent, reliable, and not hard to time. Now, if you're feeling risky, you can go for the much harder to time parry in order to get a counterattack that does good damage and makes you receive no damage. It is risky as the timing is pretty tight, but it's an optional move that rewards players willing to learn, and it isn't required. The Paper Mario combat system is built around blocking first and foremost, which works amazingly well since it never punishes you for blocking and blocking only, thus making the game way more accessible. Now, I did kind of lie to you when I said this game uses the Paper Mario system, because this uses a shitty version of that system, where it is parrying and dodging. The dodge is this game's equivalent of block, and it is worthless, as the game is built around the much harder and more annoying to do parry. That's right, this shit is built around a borderline non-functional parry, and I will admit some of the fault is on me, since I am somewhat rhythmically challenged. But the core issue is that this is the only way to effectively progress in the game, which wouldn't be an issue if there was an option in the accessibility settings for an extended parry window. However, this is not an option, so if you have any sort of disability or any reason at all that prevents you from getting the timing exactly right, you are forced to play this game on the lowest difficulty, since that is the only option for an extended parry window, which is a shitty move, especially considering that they have an option that removes the timing for the exponentially easier to time QuickTime events. Now, I would be more okay with this if the parry was actually good. I have played my fair share of games with parrying, and unlike any of those games where you parry at the last possible moment, you actually parry before you even get hit, right before it starts to swing into you, which is ridiculously stupid and unintuitive, but whatever. Or it would be whatever if the timing felt consistent between attacks. Back to the timing window though, since if you have any sort of timing issues, you are stuck on the story mode difficulty, it makes the entire game way too easy to get through. This is why I wanted an accessibility option for extended parry windows, since I would have been able to play the game with the intended damage numbers and difficulty. But this wasn't the case, and I am pissed. It's such a baffling choice given the importance of accessibility in games, and especially baffling given how easy it would be to have implemented, but for some reason it just isn't here. Why these bastards didn't care about making their game playable is beyond me, but it is what it is. Anyway, the biggest problem is that the combat just doesn't feel good. Don't get me wrong, hitting a fat chain of parries does feel good, but the fact of the matter is it just didn't feel good as a whole. To be honest, the parry mechanic feels kind of cheap and lazy. Like, the fact that you can theoretically get through every combat encounter in the game without taking damage once is kinda stupid, yet it's literally intended at the highest difficulties. I feel like all the strategy has been removed from the game simply by virtue of the fact you can just say no to taking any damage and insta-gib anyone by simply countering them, and that is definitely just a me thing as a fan of RPGs. The gameplay beyond combat also feels hollow. Like, the main thing you do is aimlessly wander around without a mini-map in these vast open areas and hope you either stumble across an optional boss or collectible, or stumble across the main objective, and every area just feels hollow. Also on top of that, the game has a strong emphasis on platforming, and you guessed it, it's barely functional, and it makes you want to do what David Lynch says to do when you forget a good idea. I suppose that this is the trap of the modern open world game, but I'm a bit pissed off enough to blame this on E33. I mean, come the fuck on, a minimap is like the bare minimum for a modern RPG. I don't got time to be fumbling around this world that is devoid of content. I gotta review shit like Silent Hill F immediately after this. Don't quote me on that. That may not be the video directly after this one. And if I can make myself finish it, I gotta cover Disco Elysium soon after that. I guess I did promise that one. I guess I promised both of those, but I'll do my best. We'll do what I can. I hold no promises here. Back to the world of E33 though, it just feels so empty. And I get that's kind of the point, what with the world that remains being a fractured fragment of what once was, but it all kind of feels empty with the only semblance of life coming from the characters, and that may be the one area this game doesn't entirely fall flat. The characters. The characters are one of the rare saving graces in this game, even if most of them aren't all that special, and only like 3 of them are interesting and worth talking about. However, I have a duty to fulfill as a critic, and I gotta talk about all 7 characters that are actually of significance to this bullshit nightmare game. Gustav was in the game for 1 act, and to be quite blunt, I just didn't care about this little dweeb. Like, he's framed to be the main character of the game. This depressive, middle-aged, Cloud Strife but French wannabe had a single moment of being good when he wanted to shoot himself in that one cave early on, since that was literally me. That's not entirely true. The father-daughter relationship between Gustav and Maëlle is pretty well done, and compelling enough for this kind of game. Not the best in the genre's history, but definitely not the worst. Beyond that, bro dies like a hero, yet I felt nothing. I think this game didn't spend enough time with the character to make me care about him at all. Like, all I know about him is that he's a divorced man with an adopted daughter, he's an inventor, and he died in a scripted encounter so everyone else could escape. That's really his entire purpose in the narrative, and I felt nothing. I do get the feeling that the devs didn't have enough time with Charlie Cox to do everything they wanted to do with the character, and in all honesty, I can't see why this performance was nominated for Best Performance at the Game Awards, since it was so monumentally weak and not fully realized. Verso is Gustav's replacement in Acts 2 onward, and he is played by Ben Starr, who I know from being the live-action Jimbo Balatro in some commercials. Anyway, with Verso being our Act 2 and 3 Gustav replacement, he's definitely utilized effectively enough by the narrative. His twists are mildly interesting, and his core arc about wanting the sweet release of death is one of the more compelling arcs we get. The reveal of him being Mael's older brother who is dead in reality, the fact that this whole world only exists in his canvas, and that he only exists here because A, his soul is trapped in here, and B, he's a recreation created by his mom so she could grieve him in her own fucked up way, are both pretty interesting ideas that are executed to a very standard level. Now, I know my perspective has been shaped by the numerous interpretations of grief I've seen in things like the 1989 comic book Jim the Crow, which leaves me feeling disappointed by Verso's core arc. However, what I am not disappointed by with this boyo are his interactions with all the other party members when at camp. I won't say too much about these interactions just yet, since I'll talk about them more when I talk about each respective character, but I will go ahead and say the best of these interaction sets are with Sael, hands down. As a whole though, Verso is just kinda alright. Feels like he should have been the protagonist in Act 1, but they needed to mimic a fraction of the power of Final Fantasy VII's iconic and beautiful Aerith's death scene, so fuck it, for those who come after. We continue with Mael. Here we have the actual protagonist of the game, and one that is actually pretty compelling and well written for this. Don't get it twisted. Did this character deserve to win Best Performance at the Game Awards? Fuck no! Not at all. It should have gone to Konatsu Kato without question because of how truly incredible her performance as Hanako in Silent Hill F was. But that's not relevant to this script. Back to the point, Mael is a solid, basic JRPG protagonist chosen one type that has the really compelling fact about her being that she's one of the 3 actual people we see in the game. And more than that, her backstory with the fire. This is the one thing that really makes her an interesting and complex character, and the only thing that makes the dumbass ending choices have anything vaguely resembling depth. Mael's reality as Alicia, a mute burn victim with an ever-declining health in the remnants of a broken family, is a really underbaked aspect of the narrative, since most of the game doesn't do shit with the real Mael. Most of the emphasis is on the painted world version of Mael, and I do think it's a little disappointing for the game to ignore reality. I get why, from the producer's perspective, we only show painted Mael. It's so that they don't have a silent protagonist for a narrative focused on character interactions. I honestly think spending more time with real Mael would have done wonders for this game, especially because of my reading of the bad ending. Ending the game with Mael making the choice to stay in an escapist world where she has, in her eyes, purpose and family and a voice makes sense for her character, and would be more satisfying to the audience if we spent more than 10 minutes at most in the real world, since this is repeatedly mentioned that her life in reality is miserable. Getting to see that misery would make this ending feel more earned and informed by the rest of the narrative, while it would also make having the good ending have more weight, since it would show how reconnecting with and properly grieving Verso changed her to be able to properly reconcile with her family. Either way, having more than whatever the fuck that Act 2 epilogue was to explore what Mael's reality is like would have been so much better and make this narrative a lot more interesting. However, I cannot live in a world of what ifs, or what if they did this instead, so I have to deal with what they did. What they did do is make Mael have very interesting family dynamics with characters like Gustav and Verso, and to a lesser extent the whole rest of the expedition. Her father-daughter relationship with Gustav is very believable, and their camp interactions are easily the highlight of Act 1. These interactions all feel so natural that it really elevated those moments. Similarly, the brother-sister relationship between Verso and Mael is mostly good, even if the ending is the most disappointing shit. Again, her interactions with Verso are good enough for the same reasons as Gustav, except you get the pure comedy at the start of Act 3 that comes from having character customization on during the dramatic-ass moment where Mael and Verso talk about the big plot reveal of reality, except Verso's in a swimsuit and it absolutely kills me. It's the funniest shit in the game. Anyway, I'd go on about Mayhel's interactions with the others, but to be honest, most of them fall in the same categories. Lune and Sayel are both maternal figures to her. Minoko and SK are kinda like the funny little creatures her brother told her about that she's accepted as real. Also, her combat is the most fun the game has to offer. Like, doing a build that's basically makes her into an infinite goumage machine is the most fun shit you've ever seen. But even doing a massive burn stack build like I did was a lot of fun too. Back to Lune, yeah, she's cool. I kinda like a detached scientist type character. Her combat was kinda fun because I liked chaining her skills together to keep hitting some crazy combos, and god, it was real satisfying. Anyway, outside of combat, her interactions with Verso are where we get a lot of info about her parents being expeditioners and scientists. They used her as an unpaid lab assistant, and all that is sad, but to be frank, it's not that strong of a subplot. Don't get me wrong, I like Lune as a character, but her interactions with Verso and that being her big subplot don't do much for me. Sayel, though, has an amazing subplot, and the depths they gave the character interactions between her and Verso really were the strongest thing the game had to offer. Her subplot is the darkest thing in the game. Her husband died in an accident way before he was supposed to goumage, which led to her trying to drown herself to death, and little did she know she was pregnant, so she killed the baby too. And it's a whole thing. It's handled much better than the rest of the game, and it made me feel something. Granted, that something was more surprised that this game was going there, but it was a feeling nonetheless, which is more than the rest of the game gave me. Beyond that, I didn't use Sayel all that much in combat, so I can't really talk about her gimmick, which means I'm basically done talking about the character, and we're off to the wacky creatures. Minoko and SK are these entities created by Verso, and that's all I can really say about them. I lied, I have more to say about both of them, starting with SK. I fucking hate SK. This annoying air sac bitch just never stops talking. Like, anytime you move with him on the world map, he's just constantly saying his shitty lines in his shitty, annoying-ass voice, and I'm kinda sick of the quirky and wacky characters in JRPGs. Like, why do people even try to do anything like that when it's already been perfected in Earthbound? The only developer allowed to do quirky characters now is Toby Fox, because he's the only one who gets how to do them right. SK is not funny, he's not enjoyable to be around, but he's one of the most important characters in the game since he's basically all of your mobility. You will be spending the entire game with this shit-ass floating pillow boy, and he never shuts up. Minoko is actually cool. He's Verso's best friend, and he steals the abilities of enemies by stealing their feet. So maybe he isn't as cool as I just said he was. I do think he's a fun character, and you're incentivized to use him for basically the whole game, since you can only get these skills if you use him in combat. Anyway, I like his combat style. The whole gimmick around using different skills to advance the mask wheel and make his next move stronger is a cool mechanic. He's got some good humor to him, his interactions as an old friend with Verso are neat, and that's all I got on him. Renoir is just the typical evil father who thinks he knows best, like a gender-bent version of Mother Gothel from Rapunzel. Except he's kinda meaningless, and I feel bad for saying that, because in no world should a character played by Andy Serkis, who, need I remind you, was Gollum in Lord of the Rings? But really, Renoir doesn't do shit. His final fight is easy as hell, he just kind of shows up randomly, and he's just a nuisance the whole damn time. That's the best I can say about this character, other than he does have that shit on him. Like, bro is dripped the fuck out at all times, and I love him for that. This is the section I really wanted to write, because I have a theory as to why this game just destroyed the Game Awards, and why this record-breaking number of wins wasn't unexpected if you can remember some trends with modern games. To set the groundwork, back when E33 was a brand new release, I remember seeing some buzz about it online, and in particular, I saw a type of comment I've seen before. A comment made by someone people would call an RPG virgin, RPG newbie, or any other creative way you could say for someone who's new to the genre, which is, "This is the first game I didn't skip the cutscenes in," type comment. I saw this a lot, and what it tells me is that a large portion of this game's success is because it somehow breached containment. What does that mean, you may ask? Well, it's quite simple. RPGs are typically a genre that only appeals to a particular type of gamer, and that's the kind of gamer who likes story, who will watch a cutscene with an open mind and eagerness to see what a game has to offer. Basically, the kind of player who doesn't want to be caught dead saying that a game was the first one where they didn't skip cutscenes. And for an RPG to reach that kind of person who'd say that is a special moment. A noteworthy example is when this happened back in 2017 with the global release of one Persona 5. At no fault of its own, a game will reach an unintended audience, whether it's for aesthetics, gameplay, characters, music, whatever it may be, and then it ruins the reputation of that game forever. Me mentioning Persona 5 undoubtedly made some people shudder because they thought of those people who really like Persona 5. I don't mean people who think the game is good, I mean people who are real weird about liking Persona 5. Think Yandev, if you don't know what I mean by that. And I'm sorry if you know who that is. Back to the point, though, E33 is an anomaly that breached containment by randomly appealing to people who have never played a JRPG before, just like Persona 5 did in 2017. I do think a large part of why this game breached containment is that it wasn't in the usual anime game style associated with JRPGs, as this was a gritty, realistic Unreal Engine 5 game with aggressively French aesthetics. This being a relatively striking visual made the game stand out more to the average gamer, but it looks similar enough to every other UE5 game that it's not off-putting, or all that creative to be blunt. Then you have difficult gameplay with a focus on parrying that makes the average player feel more engaged. Adding an incomprehensibly bad story with very surface-level explorations of death, grief, and loss, and then you've got a very successful recipe for appealing to people who haven't played a real-ass JRPG before, as we've seen time and time again. What we haven't seen before is this very safe type of game receiving near-universal praise at every awards show known to man. What typically happens is this kind of game will be popular for a little bit, then get a few nominations, win a couple of them, then be forgotten about by the time a new game rolls around to take its spot. But for some godforsaken reason, this game continues for those who come after. I realize talking about this is feeding into this game not getting forgotten, but this is such a weird game to have won nearly everything. Now, I know I sound like I'm coping and seething and shit, but my brother in crust, I cannot understate how much better Silent Hill F was in literally every single department, especially performance, but since this had a very broad and successful appeal to people who don't know games, it took it all. I'm not saying success is a bad thing. The people who made this game should be proud of the work they've put into making this game, and my opinion should largely be ignored. They made a game and I haven't. Yet. And that is a commendable effort. They managed to make something highly successful that is an accomplishment worthy of praise, but not 9 out of 13 nominations won at the Game Awards praise. However, even with that said, this game is a derivative mess that took the risky and groundbreaking ideas from those who came before to make a very safe and ultimately unsatisfactory game that appealed to people who fundamentally don't get JRPGs. And I just don't think something so safe should be praised this much. Praise should be given to those who innovate, the creative visionaries who make games and take risks to make a unique product, and not those who make a game that's running over the same old ground, only to find the same old fears. The word of the day is frustrating. Because as I wind down and start thinking about my final review score and closing remarks, I'm frustrated. This game was truly not a good experience as a JRPG, especially the minigames this game tries to do. I only explicitly mentioned the Gestural Volleyball minigame for being a non-functional nightmare, but a lot of the other games do not fare much better, particularly the platforming minigames, or the Only Up segment, which do not feel good to play. And for the record, I did everything except for like 4 achievements: reaching level 99, beating Simon, getting every record because the last record I need is the one you get for beating Simon, and finishing all 33 trials in the Endless Tower. The big reason I didn't finish those was because I ran out of time and had to take care of some things. Anyway, having done and seen almost everything the game has to offer, I can say my final verdict for this game, and my final rating for this is going to be a 5.5 out of 10, the highest rating I am comfortable giving it. There are some things this game does well, but an overwhelming amount of it is just not good. Like, there's basically one song in the game, and you cannot tell me otherwise, because all that shit sounds the same. But at its core, E33 is a frustrating game because it took a ton from those who came before and cobbled together what is at first a very surface level save the world narrative that loosely explores the themes of death, grief, and loss in a vague and clumsy way, until it becomes a story about a dying disabled girl and her dysfunctional family dealing with the death of her older brother in the accident that made her become disabled and dying. This fascinating concept is then reduced down to a wannabe European art cinema ending that adds nothing and leaves you feeling frustrated at not only the game, but the entirety of France as a result. The long moral of the story is that this game isn't good, don't play it, go play something good like Mother 3 instead. Anyway, my name is A Leg of Glazed Ham, and thank you for watching. It means a lot, and I cannot wait for you to see what else I've got cooking for the year. It's gonna be really incredible. You'll see. Thanks again, and good night.